Okay, so I got cut off before I finished the last bit of the units. It only lets me do 15 minutes at a time. So, almost done. Photography unit is, just like it sounds, responsible for recording and examining physical evidence. They may use special techniques like digital imaging, infrared, UV, X-ray. So it's not necessarily just cameras. It's just anything that can take different types of images. So like an example, if you're using like infrared, sometimes things show up under infrared that's like looking for heat signatures that wouldn't show up with other type of film, or you couldn't see it in light. UV, same thing, like something, that's UV is black light. So something will show under black light that wouldn't show under just regular lighting. So it's not necessarily just pictures, but any way that they can find things using some kind of like imaging technique. The toxicology unit examines body fluids, blood, urine, from the organs, the presence of drugs and poisons. So basically, same thing as a toxicologist, but you might be not a fully certified toxicologist and still get to work in a toxicology unit. Being like a lab tech, just helping run the tests, you would make less than like a full-blown toxicologist, but could still end up working in that kind of job. The fingerprint unit, exactly like it sounds, processes and examines crime scene and evidence for latent fingerprints. So there's a lot of different ways you can take fingerprints off many different types of surfaces using different chemicals. So just processing those, and then it's harder than you think to match a fingerprint. Like you have to zoom in, like you see this lady zooming in and checking it over and over. Most of the time you can put it into a computer system and it will do the initial matches, but then you have to so it will narrow it down, basically saying like these ones could be matches, and then you have to go through and find the actual match, or see if there is an actual match. And then I'm going to skip these. Okay. So our last bit that we're going to cover this week is just a little bit more about kind of other departments you can work in. Every single department that you work in has to follow chain of custody, though. So chain of custody is a vocab term. It just means that it's talking about the document or paper trail showing who seized the evidence, who had custody of the evidence, who had control over it for a certain period of time, who transferred it, where did it go, who analyzed it, who signed off after they were done, wrote the report, and who dropped it off physically or electronically. Basically, you have to have a complete record of where that evidence is from, where it went, what happened to it in its entire journey. And if any of that time is not accounted for up to when the person actually goes to court, it can be thrown out of court. So basically it becomes this word, inadmissible. So if there's like a couple hour period where we cannot prove where it was, someone forgot to sign off on it, that would tell the jury that it possibly could have been being tampered with then, because we can't prove where it was at. If they have any possibility that it could be tampered with, then they can throw it out of court. And obviously that'd be really terrible. What if that was like your best piece of evidence and now it has to be thrown out? So following chain of custody and being extremely careful with making sure that everything is documented becomes extremely important. Now, you could work in these 4 major crime labs. So these are like the biggest crime labs you can work in the country. The first one is the FBI. So the FBI was established in 1908 during the presidency of Theodore Roosevelt. Basically, they are national security, so they only handle national cases. And so, like, if anything is not in like one general location, so it's, it's a drug ring that is across states, well, that becomes a national problem now. It's not just in your city. So they will come and take over that case. FBI has the largest crime lab in the world. These are all the offices that are where the FBI is located. So basically, if you were going to be in the FBI, you would have to live in one of these places because this is where their crime labs are at. Then there's the DEA. So the DEA is a Drug Enforcement Administration. So they are just drug task forces, okay? So the Drug Enforcement Administration was created during President Nixon. Basically was trying to, like the war on drugs, that was what was started in the 70s. But it is still continuing on. We definitely have an issue with drugs in this country, from it being smuggled in or being smuggled out. And most of the DEA would handle like big cases. So this isn't like small drug offenses that would be handled by cops in the city, but any like a drug traffic ring, okay, is what they would be going in after. Then there's the ATF. So the ATF Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. That's what the ATF stands for. So all of that, they would handle any cases that have to deal with alcohol, tobacco, or firearms that are bigger cases. Again, the smaller ones are always going to be like regular cops. So the ATF itself was established in 1972 but it traces its roots back to the Prohibition times. So basically, they are a unique law enforcement agency that protects our communities from violent criminals, criminal organizations, the illegal use of trafficking firearms, so like selling firearms illegally, the illegal use of storage of explosives, so same thing, explosives, terrorism, acts of arson, bombings, terrorism would be a big part, violations of tax laws, which is kind of weird. But that'd be all the different aspects that they are going to be getting into. Is this the last of the crime labs? Yes. So this is our last slide. This is the last of the crime labs. So you could also work for the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. So that is the USPIS, the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. So it is through the mail. There actually is, several people send illegal things, even things to hurt people through the mail, and they would be the ones in charge of making sure that that doesn't happen. So the USPS is one of the country's oldest federal law enforcement agencies. We've had mail going around since 1737, so this was created a very long time ago. And it's there to enforce the laws that defend the nation's mail system from illegal or dangerous use and ensure public trust through the mail. So that would be what they focus on. It is a whole department, though, just making sure that things that are being shipped and things that are being sent through mail are safe and not like people sending each other a bomb. All right, guys, that is the end of notes for this week.